What's up, guys? I'm nobody special, and I'm out at a Girl Scout camp out with my daughters right now. The kids all back there splashing in the lake. If you've never been camping with a bunch of Girl Scouts, let's just say there are unique challenges associated with that. But we've gotten through it. It's been a good time. Girls have been pretty good. They're all splashing in the lake right now. We're gonna do a little fishing later. Having a good time. But the reason I'm doing this video right now is I saw a video recently from my man Sandy C over at Uncommon Sense. What's up, Sandy C? And he made a video about this meeting going on in El Salvador about Bitcoin. And well, he called out me and Chris from Financial Fitness, and he called out the Economic Ninja, asking us what we thought about it. Well, thanks, Sandy. Appreciate the mention in your video, brother. So let me give you my thoughts on El Salvador and their Bitcoin conference. All right. First of all, I like the comparison you did. By the way, I'm going to put a link to Sandy's video down in the description below so you guys can check that out. I like Sandy's channel. He does a lot of really cool ideas about how to save money and pinching pennies, which, hey, take it from me. I am cheap AF. I love that kind of stuff. Hey, man, every dollar I can shave from my expenses is another dollar I've got available to put to work for me in markets or doing whatever crazy idea I'm doing at any particular moment, like my chickens right now. But anyways, check out Sandy C's video. And he was talking about this meeting of 44 countries going on in El Salvador. And the premise of the meeting is about the unbanked and giving them access to Bitcoin, right? The unbanked is a term for people from poorer countries or impoverished areas that don't have regular access to the banking system, so they don't have access to credit, they don't have access to debit cards, right? When they can pretty much deal only in cash, and it does limit their upward mobility somewhat. Although, to be honest with you, from somebody that's in the banking system, I can't wait to get out of the banking system. I'm trying to be my own bank. That's why I invest in physical precious metals. But, you know, I also pay my utility bills, I pay my mortgage payments, right? All that is done through the banking system. So for somebody with no access to the banking system, I can see how that really does limit their options in life. So that's the premise of the meeting, is about bringing access to the financial system to the unbanked via cryptocurrency. And, you know, I can get behind that. I like that idea. And I do like the idea of cryptocurrency in its pure form, right? Not Tether, not stable coins, right? Not the exchanges. I'm talking about the distributed ledger technology, the blockchain. And that can do wonders for people who have been impoverished by the eroding effects of inflation over their life. So I love the idea of bringing that to the unbanked. All right. In his video, Sandy C compared it to the Bretton Woods agreement, and that's kind of interesting. Maybe it's not as big as Bretton Woods, because I looked at the list of countries that participated, and there wasn't really any like economic powers involved. You know, it was mostly poorer countries that really have suffered under the petrodollar Bretton Woods system. So I can see why they are looking for alternatives, because these countries have been moved around on the board like pawns on a chessboard, as these big countries have played games with people's lives, manipulating the currency and exporting their inflation. Also, their own governments have really wreaked havoc with their money printing in some of these countries. So I can really see the benefits for them, okay? And I kind of like the comparison to Bretton Woods, because with Bretton Woods, that was the agreement. My understanding of it is it was after World War II. The United States made very large loans to European countries to rebuild after the war. And the agreement was, you guys send us all your gold. We'll take it in the U.S., convenient for the U.S., right? And we'll make you these large dollar loans. And don't worry, these dollars are redeemable for gold, so you can always get your gold back when you pay back the loans. Well, fast forward to 1971, and the U.S. basically defaulted on the Bretton Woods agreement when we said the U.S. dollar is no longer backed by gold. We kept the gold, and we always said, hey, no problem, you guys can redeem your dollars anytime you want, but we're not going to give you gold for it. So the U.S. kind of killed Bretton Woods. All right, so comparing this 44 countries to Bretton Woods, I guess. But there would have to be some kind of a currency agreement to come out of that, right? All these countries would have to say, we're all going to adopt Bitcoin as a currency within our countries. Or maybe they agree on some kind of a joint currency that is backed by Bitcoin or redeemable for Bitcoin. I could get behind something like that, right? Because the thing about Bitcoin is it's out there in the open, right? I heard Joe Brown on Heresy Financial. He compared it to a giant billboard that shows how much money everybody has, right? So there's no question if we're going to do, if say a central bank was backing a fiat currency using Bitcoin reserves, then there's no question whether or not that central bank has the Bitcoin or not, because it's a distributed ledger technology. Anybody can look at that wallet and see, yeah, the Bitcoin is there. But in the States, like, we haven't had an audit of the Federal Reserve ever. We haven't audited the gold in Fort Knox in decades. So yeah, we supposedly have our gold, but nobody really knows if we have our gold, right? There's none of that garbage going on with Bitcoin, because anybody can see how much Bitcoin any wallet has. So all we need to know is the address of the central bank's wallet, and we can see what Bitcoin they have there. So it does eliminate a lot of this nonsense. So I like that idea. All right, I do kind of like the idea of a Bretton Woods using Bitcoin. However, big asterisk on this one, all right? The big asterisk is Tether. And every time I mention Bitcoin, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Tether, because Tether is a landmine that one day someone's going to step on and it's going to blow up the whole cryptocurrency space. And right now, it looks like Tether is beginning to lose its peg, right? For a couple of hours there, a few days ago, Tether did lose its peg. It traded down to 95 cents. And Tether is still being redeemed by the millions, by the tens, hundreds of millions. Tether is still being redeemed. So there is this little bank run going on Tether right now, and it hasn't lost its peg outright yet, but it's coming. It's almost lost its peg to the dollar. And, you know, nobody really knows. Tether right now, they can keep up with these redemptions, but nobody really knows what they have in their reserves, and if it's this junk Chinese commercial paper or bonds issued by companies that can't pay it back. So right now, Tether's probably liquidating their better stuff, keeping their garbage in reserve, because nobody wants to buy the garbage. So when Tether pops, and I think it will pop, Bitcoin's probably going to drop in a big way, like possibly like 50% overnight, right? I mean, we could wake up one morning and Bitcoin is trading at 15,000. It could happen. All right. And if you are El Presidente Nayib Bukele in El Salvador, and you have wagered your entire country's finances on Bitcoin, and suddenly Bitcoin crashes 50%, well, El Presidente will have some explaining to do, won't he? So there are dangers with hitching your national currency to Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is very speculative. It's highly speculative. It's highly volatile, right? With the opportunity for big gains comes big risk. There are no gains without risk. Anybody who promises you that is lying to you. So that's one concern with this national currency. Although the more people who use Bitcoin, the more countries that use it, the more people start transacting in it, the more stable the currency will become, because the markets will become more liquid. So the more people pile in, the less of these big swings we're going to see. Now, the other thing I would caution about with El Salvador is the people they're doing business with. Because if you look at, like, you know, this Bitcoin city, for example, that El Salvador wants to build next to a volcano with the geothermal power plants and everything, and they've issued these Bitcoin bonds in order to finance this construction. The problem with that is the people brokering that deal, the people who are setting up those bonds, are the same crooks that run Bitfinex and Tether. Paolo Ardoino and all the, you know, I call him the chief gaslighting officer over at Tether, right? It's the same guys that are in bed with President Bukele in El Salvador that are setting up these Bitcoin bonds, right? And I don't trust these guys one bit. They could be, if it turns out Tether is a Ponzi scheme, like a lot of people claim it is, and I am inclined to agree with them, it would be the biggest fraud in history. And that's who's underwriting these Bitcoin bonds in El Salvador along with the president, all right? So there's some shady stuff going on in the periphery around this nationalization of Bitcoin that's going on in El Salvador. Maybe nationalization is not the right word, but this adoption on a national level. So there are some concerns there. Do I think it's Bretton Woods too? Probably not. It's probably not that big, just because the countries involved, the combined GDP of all 44 of these countries is still nothing like the GDP of the US or even some of the countries in the European Union. However, there is potential there for these countries to escape from the exporting of inflation that the United States and Europe have done to them through the petrodollar Bretton Woods system. So that's my thoughts on what's going on in El Salvador. Again, thanks Sandy C for the shout out in your video. Check out Uncommon Sense. I'm going to put a link down in the description below. You can check out that video and subscribe to his channel. He's another one from the Ninja Nation. I met Sandy in Dallas at the event. We had a great time, and he started his YouTube channel right afterwards, and it's been great to watch that channel grow. All right, guys, I'm going to go see the Girl Scouts. Till next time, live small and dream big.